To start off, I'm a female and I grew up in a very small town. So small that, in my town, there was not one traffic light and only one local store and one local pizza shop. One day, years ago when I was about 17 or 18 years old, and still living with my mum and stepdad, we decided to order pizza from the local shop up the hill. My mum ordered the pizza and I had to drive up and pick it up. After putting my boots on and bundling up in my warm jacket, hat and winter scarf, I walked out into the snowy weather to get my car and drive out to the pizza place. Just for clarity, I'll describe the pizza shop. It's up on a hill on a narrow sharp corner and is set up like a drive-through with quite literally nowhere to park, and instead one small space in front of the store. I pull up at the window and have the money ready to pay. A thin older man with brown scraggly hair opens up the window and asks for the last name that the order was placed under. I give him a smile and kindly say our last name. He smiles a large grin and tells me that it's not ready yet, that it will be in a few minutes. I say, "Oh, okay, that's fine. No big deal, I'll just chill for a few." He then asks me if I would like to come in and get warm. When he says this to me, I happen to notice that he's literally the only person in the shop and is giving me the biggest, most menacing grin imaginable. I tell him, "No thanks, I'll just wait in my car." He proceeds to ask again, multiple more times. Keep in mind that it's strictly a pickup service, not where customers are supposed to come in and eat. At this point, I'm creeped out and just want to say, "Listen buddy, I just want to get my delicious food and get the hell out of here." But instead, I smile sweetly, though feeling as uncomfortable as hell, and say, "No thanks." He seems upset and says that it's very cold outside and that I would be much more comfortable inside.
"Just pull up to the side some and shut your car off. I'll let you in from the side door."
What the hell? Is this guy for real? There is no way in hell I was coming into that shop with him. I tell him again, "No thanks, I'm good sitting in my car." He seems upset and says,
"Fine then,"
and shuts the window. A few minutes go by and I notice the man pacing back and forth in the shop and continuing to smile widely and stare at me each time he walked past the window. I am weirded out at this point, so I act like I'm on my phone to avoid any further interaction with this man. Eventually, he opens the window and tells me the total while handing me a pizza. I give him the money and kind of just want to peel out of there, but my mum would have my ass if I don't bring her back her change. He comes back to the window with my change, and before handing it to me, says,
"You should have come in. The offer is still open though."
I give him a look that reflected, "What the fuck?" and grab the money so I can get the hell away from this creep. After driving home and walking in my front door, my mum sees a look of straight disgust on my face, and then I start to cry. She gets up and comes over to see what happened and if I'm okay, and I start telling her the whole story with tears just rolling down my face. I know, I'm a baby, but it really did scare me. After hearing about everything that happened, my stepdad is disturbed and calls the pizza man to confront him. After explaining the story to him and how it was completely inappropriate, the man, apparently the new owner, denied every single bit of it. He told him that he didn't know what he was talking about and that I was making it up. My stepdad gets off the phone with him to tell me, and my jaw drops completely. What was that man planning to do with me? Why would he lie and say that he never said those things to me when he definitely did? Basically, it freaked me out, and I didn't go back to that pizza place for a long time. Still to this day, 9 years later, that man owns that pizza shop. I wonder how many other girls he's tried to get into his shop, or how many times that he's lied, saying that he didn't try to get a woman to go in there. It gives me shivers just thinking about it. It was Halloween of 2009. I had just turned 21 and my friend Casey had asked me to attend a really cool party she was invited to. Now, normally I don't turn down a good party, but that particular night I didn't feel like partying. I felt like staying at home and maybe watching a scary movie or two while munching on some unhealthy snacks with Casey. However, she wasn't having it. She wanted to go to that party, and one way or the other, she would make me go there with her. It was a costume-themed party, but I didn't really feel like dressing up as anything, nor did I have anything to wear. I decided to go as myself. Scary enough, I guess. Casey, however, was eager to get to a Halloween store before they closed, hoping that she could find a good mask. She was frantically texting Alex, who was supposed to be picking us up to take us to the party. About 45 minutes later, Alex texted Casey and told her that he was here and for us to come out. We stepped into Alex's car and was greeted by his cologne, which he had drowned himself into. "Hey, Alex." Alex was Casey's ex-boyfriend. They were on and off for about 3 years before finally breaking up for good, but they remained good friends up until this day, which you don't see happening often. Alex told Casey that on his way here, he passed by a Halloween store and they were closed already. He also Googled a few places, but nowhere was open. It was too late already. Casey was a bit bummed out for going to a costume-themed party without a costume or even a mask, but soon got over it. When we got to the party, we were greeted by the drunk college kids hanging out in the front porch. I immediately regretted going because I thought it was going to be a trashy party, but surprisingly, it turned out to be a pretty fun night. I had a few shots too many and was quickly feeling the little buzz I had turn into a drunkenness state. As many girls do, Casey and I headed to the upstairs bathroom to touch up on our makeup, and to, of course, gossip about all the cute guys we had seen. When we got to the upstairs bathroom, Casey started working away on her makeup and asked me to leave the door open as she gets pretty claustrophobic. Plus, it was pretty hot inside that place. Or maybe I had too much to drink. Either way, in the midst of our conversation, we saw a guy stumbling out of one of the bedrooms, which I thought was the master bedroom. He was dressed as a butcher, hat and everything, and some big blood spots on his outfit, but for some reason, no cleaver in his hand. It would have looked a bit more realistic with a cleaver. He was holding his stomach, which was covered in blood, while stumbling through the hallway, one hand sliding across the wall as he walked. We made short eye contact, and he continued making his way to the stairs. Casey and I, of course, were in awe of his costume. It looked so real, and I believed he was acting out his role as a butcher, even though butchers don't act that way, do they? I was too drunk to even care, and enjoyed the little show he had put up for us, which made it look even more real. It is Halloween after all. I commented on his cool outfit and on-point acting, but he never answered. We quickly forgot about it and continued doing our thing. When we were finished, Casey and I headed towards the stairs to go down, all the while noticing the mess that the guy in the butcher costume had made. Blood everywhere, on the floor, bloody handprints on the wall, everywhere. Well, sucks for the person living in here. He has a lot of cleaning up to do, not counting the mess others might have made downstairs too. So once we were downstairs, we noticed it wasn't as crowded anymore. Most people had already left and some had crashed on the couch. It was 2 a.m. Casey texted Alex to ask where he was so he could take us home too. Alex told us that he was outside by the front porch smoking a cigarette and that we should come out if we want him to take us home. Fast forward to the next day. Casey texted me and asked me if I still remembered that butcher guy that we had seen upstairs by the bathroom. I said yes. What she told me next is something that haunts me up until this day. She told me that a friend of hers knew him and that he had gotten into an altercation with a friend of his in the master bedroom over some drugs, and they ended up physically fighting. The butcher guy had done quite some damage to the other guy, to which his friend finally pulled out a knife and stabbed the butcher guy. So when the butcher guy came out of the room, all that blood wasn't part of his costume, nor was he acting. It was all real. He had been stabbed and was fighting for his life, while his friend was still in the master bedroom, badly hurt. The fact that I had witnessed such a thing frightens me. I had seen a real stabbing. Normally I nearly faint at the sight of blood, but that night I thought it was just fake blood, and I could handle it. Little did I know that it was real blood, that the stabber was next door, and that he was really bleeding. I don't know what became of the whole situation. All I know is that the butcher guy survived. I'm not sure what became of his friend, or if he's still even alive. All I know is that I'm glad I didn't walk into that room. This story is something that actually happened to me at my friend Jennifer's slumber party around February of 1999. I live in this place called Ocala in Florida. It's known as the horse capital, mainly because there are so many horse farms there. It's essential to know this because one year my best friend Jennifer moved out of my neighborhood and into an old horse farm. It was a small farm. It had a stable, a house, and a huge fenced-in yard. She had no neighbors. The closest one was a good mile or so down the road. All around her yard was just woods. Anyway, Jennifer decides to have a huge birthday party when she turned 12. This time, she was allowed to have more than one person stay the night, so there were 5 of us staying that night. We decided to play this game called Ghost in the Graveyard. If you've never heard of it, basically, you play at night. A person who is it lays down on the ground. The remaining people walk around saying "Ghost in the graveyard, please wake up," and you count to 12 o'clock. Well, when we get to 12, Jennifer and I had made a plan weeks in advance. We were going to wear all black and decided to run all the way to the far fence in the back and lay down with our hoods up, with me covering her feet to hide her white shoes. So the night of her party, we were excited to play. One of our friends lay down on the ground and we start to chant. Jen and I exchange excited glances. We just know that we're going to trick our friends. Finally, we all scream 12 o'clock and we all scattered. Jen and I start to run as fast as we can to the fence. We lay down quickly and try to hide our laughter as we trick our friends. Everyone got caught but us, and we see them looking for us. But that's when something unexpected happened. We heard this rustling on the other side of the fence. At first, we think it's some sort of animal. After all, it is the woods. We stop watching our friends and look into the woods. There's nothing there though. Then we saw our friends walking from the long driveway to the main road. We thought it was odd that they would walk out of the yard to find us. Then the noise in the woods started to get louder. Like it was getting closer. We started to get scared, but stayed put. We noticed that our friends are walking back into the huge yard, and we hope that they come towards us soon. The noise in the woods is getting closer and closer, and the white figures of our friends start walking closer to our direction as well, but are still a good 30 feet away. Then we hear this crazy growl right beside us at the other side of the fence. It's really difficult to explain what it sounded like, because I've never heard a noise like that before. Then the fence starts to shake and Jen looks back at me terrified. I look at her and scream, "Run!" We start running to her house and the white figures of our friends are just standing there watching us, and we are screaming to them to run to the house. They started to run as well. Jen and I finally get inside her house panting when we realize that her mum and all her friends are inside looking at us worried, wondering where we were. We asked who was outside then in the field. Jen's mum went out and looked, but there was no one out there. Everyone thought that we were just pulling a prank. To this day, I have no idea what happened that night. Just to give you some background, I live in a small coastal community in Florida. It's not a bad town by any means, but there's a lot of drug use and drunks, and homeless and rich people all crowded together on the island. Let's just say that there's an active police presence at all times. My family, my mum, dad and myself, moved down from New Jersey before I started kindergarten, so I've grown up here my whole life and am an only child. We've always lived in the same house, but it's not exactly a house. It's more like a triplex of apartments, each one with their own one-car garage that share the rather big driveway. We live in one of the farthest from the road, separated from the other two by a small room for the washing machine. And just for an added fact, we've lived here longer than the landlord has owned the property, so he kinda just comes to us if there's something going on. I'm 21 now, but when I was 13, I had to walk down said street to get home from my bus stop every day. My mum isn't very strict, never really has been, except when it came to me staying home alone. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but she'd always led me to believe that it was illegal for her to let me stay home alone by myself until she got home from work. Up until I had become of age, I had been stuck in after-school daycare, staying there from when school ended until 6 PM when my mum came to pick me up. It went on like this for years. When the end of the 6th grade came, I was so fucking glad to get out of there. Back then, the first apartment was empty, vacant, and had been for a while. But 3, maybe 4 months before this incident took place, a guy had moved into Unit 2. The first time I talked to him was when I was getting the mail. I think I was expecting something I'd ordered online or whatever, but he stopped me to say hello as I walked down to the mailboxes at the end of the driveway, and I swear that he told me his name was Mike. I didn't think much of it at the time, smiled and whatever, got my mail and went about my business. On this day, I got off the bus and started walking. There were a few other kids that had got off at my stop, but they lived on the next street over, and so, just like I had done for most of the school year, I walked the edge of the road down to my driveway by myself. Usually, this is where I would stop and grab the mail, but on this day, I noticed that my neighbor had his beat-up car pulled out of his garage. It was running, and he was frantically talking to someone on a cell phone and pacing the length of it. But the thing that stood out to me the most was the thing in the front passenger seat of his shitty 4-door. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but I thought I was sly, and just acted like I was rooting around on my mailboxes. I watched him, because there were red flags all over the place. My mind was screaming to run and lock myself inside my house. 1, I had never seen this guy on a cell phone before. I'd assumed that he couldn't afford one, because dude has tinfoil on his window so he doesn't have to use the air conditioning and goes fishing at the beach every day for food. 2, while I've seen his car before, I've never actually seen him drive it. It's always in the garage, and whenever he'd go anywhere, it was always on a bike. We're pretty much within walking distance from everything, both Walmart and Walgreens, McDonald's, the beach, literally everything. It's not uncommon for people to primarily use bikes to get around town here, but since our town is on a barrier island, you have to cross a bridge to get to the mainland, and that's where the bigger part of the city is. After standing at my mailbox for what felt like too long, I forced myself to walk up the driveway, and to get to my front door, I would have to pass him in his car. I remember gripping my backpack straps the closer I got, and I had tried my best not to look over towards his apartment and the car and him, but now I was close enough to hear him, and I was freaking out on the inside. He was talking to someone, but his voice was shaken and scared, and he was telling whoever it was to, "Just hurry up," and something along the lines of, "You gotta help me, please." And the whole thing sent shivers up my spine and compelled me to turn my head in that direction. He had his back to me and was still on the phone, thank God. What I saw that day still freaks me out to this day. In the passenger seat of his car was a rug, a dirty, old, dark-stained rug that was almost too fat to be a rug, and because it had slumped over forwards, I could see something down inside of it, all rolled up. It would probably be smart to mention now that at the time I refused to wear my glasses because my vision wasn't that bad, and I could still see pretty much everything. I'm blind as a bat without them now, and it was this that made me actually want to wear them. So, I see this rug, and what I'm almost 100% sure is a head of hair in the roll at the top, and the longer I'm looking at it, the more and more I'm starting to think that it's not really the shape of a rolled up rug either, and now I'm really panicking. My dad was, and still is, addicted to HBO, and I'd spent most of my childhood watching shit like The Sopranos and crazy movies that weren't appropriate for kids. And in my head, I'm thinking that this is some movie shit, and I'm trying to convince myself that it's not real, but it isn't working. My neighbor had gone inside his garage and hadn't noticed me, so I bolted inside. I really don't even know if I had slammed the door or if he even heard it or what. I just remember throwing my school stuff on the floor and running around to make sure all the doors were locked. We have a couch pushed up against the wall so that it hits beneath the front window in the living room. It's the main window of the apartment. Basically, the front door is right next to it. So I planted myself there, leaning on it, and peeking out the window from between the blinds to see just exactly what my neighbor planned on doing with what I'm convinced was a dead body. You may be thinking, hey, you're a 13-year-old girl, home alone, who might be witnessing a murder. Why don't you call the police? Police officers in my area are kind of notorious for being douchebags, and at 13, I'd already had my fair share of experiences with them that had not gone nicely. Plus, I knew that this was all speculation, and if my mum found out that I had brought a bunch of cops to the house without it being a real emergency, she would have killed me. So instead, I called my mum. She didn't shut my theory down right away, but by this time, I'm shaking because I have no idea what to do. I'm just helpless, and as I'm telling her everything I've seen so far, she explains that there's a patient at her office and that she has to go, but she'll call back as soon as she can. Of course, just a few minutes after hanging up with her, neighbor man appears from his garage in a rush, and as he goes to open the passenger door, a white pickup truck I've never seen before creeps up slowly into my driveway. They pull up in front of the garage door for the unoccupied unit, so the truck is sort of blocked by the neighbor's car, but I can see that two middle-aged men, kind of scruffy, redneck-looking types with baseball hats and beards, get out of the small truck and start to help my neighbor maneuver the rug out of the seat, and it looks heavy as fuck. All three of them are straining to get the rug over and into the bed of the truck, and all of those hours watching murder shows and whatnot with my dad have my mind going a million miles a minute, picking out evidentiary things that were obvious to me. A 13-year-old with a Florida public school education. Like, the dead bodies weigh a shit ton more than regular live bodies do, and that it really doesn't take long for rigor to set in. Let me tell you, that rug wasn't laying flat like a regular rug would. I had been to the flea market to pick out the new rug for the living room only a few months before this, so I had a damn good idea of what it was supposed to look like. And it didn't look like that. By now, it's been about 30 minutes since I got inside the house, 20 since they pulled up and started this whole ordeal, and as quickly as they came, the guys in the white pickup truck threw a blue tarp over the rug in the back and started to leave. I tried my best to make out their license plate, but with no glasses on, my driveway being too damn long, I couldn't see it clearly. My neighbor started up his car and did a K-turn in the driveway so he could pull straight into his garage. And by then, my mum had called back and was insisting that there was nothing I could do about it, and to calm down so we could talk about it when she got home a few hours later. From that point on, I've kept my eyes on my neighbor like a hawk. There was a lot of, I guess you could call cleaning noises, coming from his garage in the following days. You know, like vacuuming sounds and scrubbing sounds. It's only about 10 feet away to his door and garage, so I could hear them whenever I opened my front door. And yes, my neighbor still lives next door. Luckily, there's never been another instance like this one again. However, the next time my mum talked to me, I made a comment like, "Oh, like the neighbor guy from next door, right?" Just to know if we were talking about the same person, and she said, yeah, the guy number 2? Of course, I'd nodded, and she'd given me this weird look. He just told me his name was Phil. To this day, I've never seen that white truck, or the men inside it, ever again. Neighbor guy, Mike or Phil, or whatever his real name is, still has the same car parked in his garage. It never moves. I don't think it runs anymore. Whenever he has to go somewhere, either he goes on that damn bike, or his son comes to pick him up and beeps in the driveway, making my dog bark. Every damn time. I honestly have no clue if my neighbor is a murderer or not. I do know that I've always found it strange that he told my mum a different name. My dad swore up and down that he told him his name was Mike too, but to this day, he still goes by Phil, and he's still my neighbor. A pretty decent one too. I mean, the guy might be late in his rent every month, but hey, He does all the landscaping. Just a few days ago, got the critters out of the soffits. So, I just got a new job back in October, working tech support on the graveyard shift. I work from 1 AM to 12 PM, Friday through Mondays. Needless to say, adjusting my sleep schedule has been quite the task, but I've managed. On the days that I don't work, I still follow my work schedule, waking up at midnight, and staying up until at least 2 PM before falling asleep, as to keep my sleep schedule in line with my work schedule. I bought blackout curtains to help with this, as trying to sleep with the sun shining in is not easy for me. I usually require complete darkness. I live alone. I started noticing weird things happening around my apartment when I would get home from work, or after waking up on my days off. Just little things at first, lights being on that I swear I turned off, and doors being opened or closed. Just so everyone can get a bit of understanding about my apartment, I live on the second floor, and my building is right behind the leasing office. The entrance to my apartment requires you to enter the building first, then there is a hallway with 2 apartments on either side, then you can enter the apartment. There is also a balcony which faces east, complete with a large sliding glass door and screen. I use it quite frequently, as I had potted plants out there, but have brought them inside due to the cold weather. I also have 2 cats, Luna and Eclipse, who, until recently, lived with me. I'm moving soon and can't afford the pet deposit, so my parents offered to let them stay at their place for the time being. Eclipse is Luna's daughter and only 6 months old, so she follows her mum around all the time. I'd usually find them cuddled up together on my chair or bed, and recently they trapped themselves in the bathroom. Now that they're not here, it had gotten harder to pass off these weird occurrences as my cats. Doors are still being left open and closed, and food has been disappearing from my fridge. At first, I passed this off as just being my usual self, and just not remembering that I ate something when I was half asleep or bored. Recently, my boss gave me permission to work from home, as this shift is brand new, as the company is moving to 24/7 support, and the building owner refuses to heat my floor for my shift for only 2 people. So, I've been doing that for the past couple of weeks, and last week I noticed the metal rod that acts as a secondary lock on the balcony door wasn't engaged, so I put it back. I didn't think much of it at the time, as my computer faces my balcony door, and I sometimes fidget with it with my feet while playing video games. On the 11th of December, my credit card information was stolen and my account was charged $3,000 plus. I was in the office that day as a favor to my co-worker who was really creeped out by being in the office alone in the middle of the night. The charge was made at 11:40 AM, just a few moments before I'd gotten off of work, and I had the card on me still. I was restless and didn't sleep well. I wake up at midnight, per usual, on Monday morning and get my setup ready to take calls. Now, almost no calls came in on the weekends, so I'm usually screwing around on Reddit, Facebook, YouTube and Netflix. Around 3 AM, I was catching up on the 100 when someone unlocked my fucking door. I don't mean picked the lock, I mean used a key. Thank God the secondary deadbolt was engaged, but the person jiggled the door to try and get it to open. I ran and grabbed my gun and looked out the peephole, but saw nothing. I opened the door with the intent to shoot someone, but the person was already gone. Before you ask, yes, I called the cops, and no, they didn't find anything. There are no cameras in the hallway of the building, or outside them for that matter, and they told me that there wasn't enough evidence for them to do anything about it, and left. I didn't sleep at all the next night, and decided to stay home, try and catch the person if they tried to come back. I also asked the leasing office if they handed out any extra keys to my apartment, and they said no, and informed them that I changed the locks on my door. Now, there's a white door just next to my apartment door, and just on the other side of a fire extinguisher is my storage closet. It's open with the same key for the deadbolt. I keep my Christmas tree and decorations in there, and decided that it was time to set it up. As I'm pulling out the tree this evening, it's only a 5-foot tall fake tree that has all the lights attached to it already. I notice a bag back behind it, a small black duffel bag. In it, I found a change of clothes, sunglasses, shoes, toiletries, and a notebook. What was in the notebook horrified me. There were notes about me, what hours, days I worked, notes about my cats, and updated notes that were no longer there, and the date, and my fucking credit card number. As I went further and further back in the notes, I found 2 words circled multiple times. Balcony door, which I assume is how the person entered my apartment for the first time. This creep had been living in my apartment while I've been at work for the past month, and I didn't even know it. The worst part is that I was in my apartment at the same time as this guy at some point, and didn't even know it. That's the only way he would have gotten my credit card number and my house key to make a copy somewhere. I've called the police and they're on their way over. I'm writing this as I'm waiting for them to show up. It's the only thing that's keeping me sane right now. Plus, I think it will help me organize my thoughts so I can best explain it to the officers what just happened. I'll keep you guys updated as things progress. Update. So, I guess I should have noted, I used to have a roommate. He joined the Navy a few months back. The cops think that the bag is his and was the one who tried to come in. Only problem with that is he's in Florida going through basic training. So unless he lied about that in an attempt to not have to pay rent anymore, I doubt that this is the case. They said they'll look into it and add it to my already open investigation on my credit card case. Update. Sorry everyone, I've been working this evening and not able to get to all of your questions, but I'll try. Yeah, I did take pictures of the bag and the contents inside. Here they are. I took the photos after making the post initially while waiting for the cops to show up, just for my own records, since I'm a paranoid fuck. I blacked out my apartment number and the CC number for obvious reasons. So, the police got back to me. They confirmed that it wasn't my roommate. They contacted his recruiter and he confirmed that he's still at basic training. They also looked at the footage from the leasing office, and nothing was found of anyone fleeing on foot, so we assumed that he went out back and fled towards the light rail station next to my complex. They're gonna get a hold of CDOT to pull the security footage from there. The only other thing that they said was, we will inform you if we find anything else. I also apologize for not being 100% on where the boot camp for the Navy is, hence why there was a question mark afterwards. Thank you to those who corrected me. It's always nice to have correct information.